can win games again, it's going to be there. It's still going to be a really tough test for Carolina, and I'm interested to see what kind of motivation they come out with.
One of the good things that will play into Carolina's hands is Syracuse runs their famed 2-3 zone. What is one of the good things that Roy Williams does? He can coach the heck out of zone offense. The man openly despises playing zone defenses, even admits that he can't coach zone defense. For all of his shortcomings coaching zone defense, he may be the best zone offensive coach currently in college basketball, and he's definitely one of the best all-time at coaching zone offense. We know the key of the zone: get the ball to the middle of the middle of the painted area at the free throw line. Good thing is that you've got Garrison Brooks that you know will show up, and if Armando Bacot, then you've got two bigs. That makes you more dangerous. Good thing.
Also, Justin Pierce, who had success against the zone earlier in the year as well when they saw it against Yale.
Yeah, so you can throw in Pierce. Garrison Brooks has quietly developed that mid-range jump shot from that area in the floor, that if you can take that and hit that, you can start dissecting the zone like a surgeon in surgery. Bryce Johnson, his senior year, made it look effortlessly. Luke May made it look easy. Garrison Brooks appears to be next in line to do that. And so I think when you look at, well, how does Carolina win? That's how Carolina's got to win. It's still playing through Garrison Brooks. It's not the same as it was Tuesday night against State, where he was bigger and stronger than his defender, where he could get position on the block, turn and score over him. Syracuse isn't going to let him get position, so you got to get to the middle of the zone and attack. The most important thing that Carolina's got to do in this game, outside of making shots, outside of rebounding the ball at a high level, they've got to make smart passes. Syracuse is going to be very active in the passing lanes. Their length is going to be a problem to some degree. This isn't the game that you try to cross-court pass. You definitely, you shouldn't have tried it against NC State. You definitely don't try that against Syracuse. They'll feed off of that. They'll get out and run and get easy buckets. And for a team that's struggling scoring the ball like you have, that's the last thing that you want to do. And so I think that's really where this game comes down to. Can Carolina just protect the ball? If they protect the ball, they probably got a good chance to win, because they've got better overall talent probably than Syracuse. They've got a better head coach than Syracuse. They're not playing for anything, unlike Syracuse is. So that's kind of where it's going to even out. We saw NC State not be up to the task and win a must-win game. Can Syracuse? And I didn't pick Carolina to win Tuesday night, and it worked. So, albeit outside of the fact that I'm not allowed to pick Carolina, I'm just going to straight up just pick Syracuse to win the game anyway, because it worked the other night. I think Syracuse will, because and you mentioned, Syracuse is an underrated team that loves the end of February going into March. We always talk about how Tom Izzo owns March, or Coach K, or Roy Williams, or whoever. But this is where Syracuse thrives. So I think they'll capitalize once again and win a big-time game at home and continue their ascension to being in the NCAA tournament discussion.
Well, I like a lot of the stuff that you said about Carolina attacking the zone, because even in what's been a down year, Carolina has had success when they've faced the zone. Games like Yale, they saw it a little bit against Georgia Tech. Those are the types of games where we've seen Garrison Brooks have a lot of success. Justin Pierce had success in that game against Yale. I think you talked about that being your best lineup late in games. I think you're right, and especially in this game. Syracuse, even though they can get up and down the floor, which you want to avoid that at all costs anyways, because let's be real, this defense this year in transition has been nothing like what it's been in past years. It has not been good. You want to avoid that at all costs. But for the most part, Syracuse is not going to try to push the tempo. They want to slow the game down because they win games by playing good defense. That's how they've always won games, and that is not going to change anytime soon. The thing about Syracuse that I feel is different from past years, they always had that second or third guy that could hurt you. If you take away Elijah Hughes from them this year, they just don't have that other guy. I mean, they've got Merrick Dolezaj, who's okay. He has moments where he looks like he can be a really solid player, but overall just isn't a consistent scoring threat. Buddy Boeheim is a guy that is on, but most people, when he began his career there, thought he was on the team because he was the coach's son. He has some game to him. He can knock down some shots, but again, the biggest thing for him has been consistency. So this feels like a game where Carolina has a chance to come out and win. And again, this also feels like one of those games. This isn't like the games that we talked about earlier in the year against Georgia Tech, against Pittsburgh, Clemson, where we looked at the stats and we were like, okay, this team is really not good. Carolina should win. Those have been the teams that Carolina has just not seemed to be able to get up for, not seemed to be able to play well against. That's not what Syracuse is. I like the matchup against the zone, and I think that what happened last time when they came out and played really well in the game, that was the Miami game. They followed it up with a win. I think they do the same thing here. I think they go on the road and beat Syracuse because even though Syracuse is a team that really thrives during this time of year, I think they realize that it's different. This is a team that I went through and looked. Bleacher Report has them in the field as of right now. That's the only website that even mentions them as a team being considered for the NCAA tournament. Every other site has them well out of the field. So I would probably lean with the consensus pick that they're not in the field right now, especially at 16-12 and some of the losses they had early in the year. I think they know that. And the other thing is that I don't know how much fan support they're actually going to have. I think there'll be a lot of people there. I think the environment will be good if they're playing well. But we've heard this stuff throughout this year that some of the fan base thinks that it's just time to basically tell Jim Boeheim, hey, man, it's been great. We need to start looking for our next head coach. You need to start looking towards retirement. So with all that stacking up, I think this favors Carolina pretty well. I think the effort will be there. And if you said that this game means more to Syracuse than to Carolina, I think that's right. But it's going to be hard convincing Roy Williams of that because as we saw the other night, Roy is pretty much ready to will this team to victory by almost passing out on the sidelines from vertigo. He wants it bad. He still wants this team to find a way to win games and if they can, make a run in the ACC tournament. And I think that alone will be enough for Carolina to find a way in a toughly contested game that is going to be ugly once again. I think Carolina finds a victory on the road in Syracuse.
Yeah, I mean, I think it figures to be a classic road ACC game for Carolina. If they win, it'll be celebrated, but we'll understand that it most likely won't be pretty. But right now, when you're 11-17, you don't care how the wins come. You just take the wins and move on. That'll happen 4 o'clock Saturday from the Carrier Dome. ESPN will televise the game. One little topic before we get out of here. The last 2 years, Carolina's worn thrown-back uniforms in the home bout with NC State. Last year, it was the jerseys from, I believe it was the 70s and some of the 80s. And then this year, they've worn the uniform. They wore the same one they wore against Wofford when they lost in Carmichael, honoring the teams from the 60s era. Which I'm a big fan of both. I think that if they could incorporate the Argyle, because now that is a basic, that's not just known with Carolina basketball. Every team at Carolina has the Argyle incorporated into their uniform one way or another. I think that if they could incorporate the Argyle into the 60s uniform, I would not be opposed going back to making that the regular uniform again. Where do you stand on Carolina's throwbacks and the opinion of, if you incorporate the Argyle, which one should be the more used, or I guess if you wanted to make one of them your standard uniform again, is it the 60s or the other uniform? Or do you like just the rotation of just having these random throwback games?
I like the random throwback games. I think it's awesome. I like both uniform sets. I like the ones from last year a little bit better, the 70s, early 80s ones, just a little bit better, but I thought the ones that they wore against Wofford and State looked great as well. Definitely better than what they wore against Duke, which, again, when we saw them in game, they didn't look as bad, but I like the throwback uniforms as opposed to the fancy alternates that they'll try to go with from time to time. And again, it's not Carolina that chooses to go with that. That's Nike and Jordan coming up with these, what they think are brilliant ideas, and they really aren't. But yeah, I think that, keeping them as things that you do periodically would be nice. I wouldn't be fully opposed to it because, look, those are uniforms that they've worn at a time. But I just don't think that's actually ever going to happen. I think they like what they've got now. I don't mind the uniforms that they've got now at all. I think they look great. I love both the white and blue uniforms. But I mean, if they came out and said and made an announcement that we're going back to the retro look and we're just going to incorporate the Argyle into it somewhere, I would not be opposed to that at all. I think that would be great. But at the same time, I'm not a guy that thinks, okay, well, that the new uniforms, I'm not really a huge fan of them. I've loved them, ever since I can remember. I've never really had a problem with any regular uniform that Carolina has worn. I know some people didn't like a few years ago when they had the well on the back of them. I thought those jerseys were awesome still. I actually thought that was pretty cool when they put the well on the back of the jersey. But, I think either way I'd be pretty satisfied as long as you incorporate the Argyle in there somewhere. Because as you said, that's become a huge part of everybody's uniform. I mean, the baseball team wears some sort of Argyle, the soccer team, even the football program has adapted that and put it on the helmets and on the collars. So I think that's one of the staples of Carolina. That's something that we really take pride in having on our uniforms. So I think you never really know what they're going to come out with over there at Jordan, especially for Carolina. So who knows? Maybe soon we'll see that worked into the rotation a little more often. But for now, I'm satisfied with seeing them as the occasional alternate uniform that they go with. It's always nice to see the guys throw on something different, and it's even nicer when he can get a win in that.
Yeah, unpopular opinion. I was a big fan of the black uniform that they brought out in the 2015-16 year.
I think that jersey was fantastic. Yeah. I agree with that. That was an awesome jersey.
So I understand.
Like jerseys, so it makes sense.
I understand the traditionalist, and when it comes to Carolina basketball, I believe in the old school. I'm a traditionalist like many fans. I understand Roy Williams doesn't like them. That's why they're not going to wear them. But if they could ever bring that back out, black out the Smith Center, I would be down for it. Couple things to tackle before we get out of here. First thing, Kobe White came back from the All-Star break, and I don't know what he drank, but he's a different player. 3 straight 30-point games.
Do you not want the NBA to test him for something, thinking that we tip them off on anything?
It could just be what Michael Jordan drank in Space Jam. And because you've never seen the movie, you don't understand what happens, but makes him a different kind of player. Kobe White, 3 straight 30-point games, First
maybe
player
Kobe
since